Have you ever felt your thoughts and opinions don't matter? Do you hesitate to take steps toward a better future or feel like others are controlling your life? It's time to break free from those limiting beliefs. Welcome to Change Your View, the podcast that empowers you to reclaim your mindset and your future. Join Hasina Shahid Jackson as we go beyond the surface, exploring life with spirit, hope, and faith. Learn to be bold and confident and create the life you truly desire. Now, here's your host, Hasina.
Well, hello, everyone. I am excited today. I have a guest here that I had the opportunity to meet. Maybe it's been about a month now, maybe 2 months. I don't know, but it was enlightening. I'm here with George Rivera today, who built a business from nothing, but that success became a trap. And in his own words, in his book that he wrote, Buying Back Your Time, it became his prison. And the achievement of that dream resulted in losing what most mattered to him. And we're going to go through that as our conversation unfolds today. So let's start at the beginning, George, and welcome here today.
Thank you, Hasina. It's nice to be here. Yeah, so at the beginning.
So my first question, let me just ask you this. What was your vision?
Yeah, so my vision, I started my business back when I was in high school. So we're already 30 years, going on 31 years, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And my vision was essentially to, even before that, so I was going to go the traditional path, graduate high school, go to college, follow in my dad's footsteps. He was a medical doctor, and then sort of like go in that path. As a child, that's just the path I thought that laid in front of me. And there was this one night, I want to say I was like 16 years old when I saw this late night infomercial on TV about making money from newspapers and classified ads, and the guy was like standing in like a Hawaiian shirt in front of the beach, just living this amazing lifestyle. And I remember looking at it saying, wow, that looks kind of cool. Like, I'd like to do that. I know I'm going to college here in a couple of years, but maybe I could like buy that and then put it under my bed, and then when I'm done with college, pull it out and like get to work on it. Shows you how naive I was at 16 there. And I kept seeing his commercials for like a year, and I was like, one day I just got brave and I got my mom's credit card and I bought the product. It was like $79 or something like that. And it came, and I ripped the thing apart. I was reading it, and then my intention was to sort of just put it away for the future. But I was like, there's no reason I can't do this now. At this time now I'm like 17. And so yeah, I started buying some ads in newspapers. It didn't succeed at all. It was a complete failure, I guess you could say. But the one thing that it did is it planted inside of me that I wanted to follow a more entrepreneurial path than sort of this kind of traditional go to college and become a doctor and follow my dad's footsteps. I felt it at the time, but I continued on the path of the education route. So I did go to college. I did go to study pre-med, but in the middle of college, I'd say beginning of my junior year, the business that I had started had evolved, started making sales, and it started to generate a decent income. And I remember thinking, wow, so I'm going to go to medical school and I have this business. This is like two different lives, and I'm still young. Like, I had this pressure of I have to make a decision, and I felt like the decision is let's steer more towards marketing because that's business that I have that's actually making money right now. And so then I made the pivot to get a marketing degree, and I graduated college. I can't say that any of that is relevant to anything that I was doing because at the time the internet was so new in its infancy. Like, it was like less than 10 years old at the it's constantly evolving, very different. And the marketing education that you learn from college was very old school, just more like the old school pre-internet tactics. So it wasn't relevant at all there. And so, yeah, I'd say that's the very beginning of the business career. And I graduated with marketing, and I just kept on going with the online business. And I was pretty much a one-man shop till about 2006, I would say. So we're coming up on, I'd say 10, 11 years in business at this point. And then when I finally learned about the concept of hiring other people to help me, I was like, man, I can grow my business now. Like, I was doing everything myself, and I probably held myself back like 3 or 4 years by not expanding my mind, thinking I could hire other people. And so, of course, I'm still single, no family. So I'm kind of like in this mode of just I can just work myself till I pass out, and it's not like it's not going to hurt anybody. And then later down the line is when I meet my wife eventually, and then the whole family dynamic comes into play. But I just want to give you a snapshot there of the beginnings of it.
But let me go back to that one comment that you made though. So like for about 10 years you said you were a one man shop, and a lot of people are that today. So what made you be able to scale up? Because a lot of times we think we don't have the resources to scale up. So how were you able? And I know living in the times that we're in now, what can you say to that process today that could help them in that scale up part?
Yeah, I'd say today it probably takes a little bit less resources than back then because today we've got platforms like Upwork and a number of other platforms, like Fiverr and others that we could like outsource to for some small, simple things on a very low commitment basis and even low cost. I mean, there's other people in other countries, like the Philippines, for example. I mean, $4 or $5 an hour goes a long way over there. Obviously, here in the States, that's impossible. And so, but that's a decent lifestyle for them over there. And so, if you don't have a lot of resources, you could hire somebody on a part-time basis for, a couple $100 a week and essentially make some good progress in your business to unload some of the things that like maybe you're kind of bootstrapping, and so you're doing a little bit more than you feel like eventually you will have to, but you can unload some of that to some really good qualified talent overseas. And so I'd say the difference between then and now is like there was no Upwork back then. So I would have had to like hire, people in the States, and there's a higher cost of living. So to hire them to help you, it's more expensive. A lot of people don't like part-time work. It's either full-time or nothing. And so the commitment was a lot more than it is today. So that's what I'd encourage people is keep an open mind about getting some help overseas at a small part-time basis.
I like that. So let's move forward a little bit here because one of the things that I really speak a lot about is the three B's: you believe, you become, and belong. And so I have to ask you this: what made you believe? Because like you said, your track was to follow in your footsteps of your dad going into medical field, but you believed that you could become that entrepreneur. And what made you believe you could build what you built?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and my dad plays several kind of like parallel lines in my journey here, as I'm sure most parents do. And so, yeah, I remember like with my dad, he lovingly kind of like was like, "Son, are you sure you want to do this?" Because in his head, and even verbally, but like I imagine he's thinking in his head because now I'm a dad, so I kind of know how dads think. It's like, I paved the way for you. I've showed you the example. We've talked about this for years. This is the path for you. But he's saying it in a loving way. Like, I've opened the door for you. This other path you're talking about, it's like, some guy on TV pitching this stuff. You don't know if he's telling the truth. It's like, he's just trying to protect me from the unknown that he just doesn't know about. So I totally get that. But there was something stubborn in me, and almost like I just, the message of that guy on the infomercial was like be your own boss. Don't let other people tell you what to do. Don't be just living for a paycheck. Like all that sort of just really resonated for me. And even another thing, like something that my dad had told me even years prior was like, he was a medical doctor and he was very successful in his career and made a good living. And of course, it's all relative. But, I remember as a kid, we'd go out to eat with some of my friends and their parents, like as a family and friends. And one of the dads of my friends was kind of like venting to my dad saying, "Oh my gosh, like we're at this restaurant and they can only go there like once every other month. Like it's a rare treat for their family to eat out at this, like, it's like a medium type restaurant, not this 5-star, but not fast food, just kind of in the middle, just a decent place." And my dad later, like when we got home, kind of like a teachable moment or something, like saying, "Look, we have it pretty good. Like there's other people out there that like the lifestyle we live every single day. There's others that can only do that once in a while. So like be thankful and be humble. And like if you want to maintain this lifestyle, you got to work hard." And he's the mirror, or he's the image of working hard, the poster child, at least for me growing up. Like that's what working hard means. And so my dad essentially devoted his whole career to his medical practice, was one of the best in the area. But it did cost him his family essentially. And another kind of early story there is like in middle school and high school, I played in about 40 games, basketball. and he only made it to one of them, one out of those 40 games. And I remember thinking, am I not important enough? Like I'm young and I don't know how to process this. So I'm asking myself these questions. And I'd score a basket and I'd look to the stands and cue the sad music and the crickets, in the movies. But then my friends, my teammates would score a basket, and then their dads are there cheering them on. That's my son, you go. And I remember looking at another dad and like loving on his kid, and I was like, I wish that was my dad. And at that time, like for my dad to ever hear that would have crushed him because he
Yeah.
was a great provider. Like I said, nice homes, nice cars, and trips to Europe every summer. But when I needed him that moment, like he was not there, and I didn't care about this other dad and what he did. I was like, I just want you to be my dad because I need that love right now. And
And
so,
and you
yeah,
talk about that a lot because and we can go to that part now because that's the pivotal moment. So now your business is successful and we're going to talk about what success means to you, defining it later on as we go down this process. But your dad is dying and you write about this in the book and that was your pivotal moment because he says to you in one of his last words, don't miss Leo's games the same way that I missed your games. And Leo is your son for everybody here. And
absolutely.
that's when you realize that what you had built had became your trap and you were your dad in actuality, that you had solved what you just described earlier. You had become him. And so you realized at that moment that you had built the life that he had built.
Yeah.
So, what did you believe about success at that time that you now had to let go because your father had like threw cold water in your face and made you realize that
Yeah.
you had crossed that line that you said you wasn't going to cross?
Absolutely. So what did I believe at that time? I just believed what I'd seen growing up was if you're going to be successful, you need to be absent from your family. It wasn't never said that way, but that's what I saw. It's like, wow, my dad's hardworking, provides us a good lifestyle, of course, relatively speaking, but he's never home. And so that's what success must look like. You're out there sacrificing for the family. And the thing is, the family, I can't imagine the family asking for this is what we want. We don't want you to be here. Like they're not asking that, but we as entrepreneurs, business owners, and say in my dad's case, it's like, I'm doing it for the family, but they never asked for it, and it's kind of like this lie that we tell ourselves, and it kind of is part of what keeps us trapped.
So then, after you came to that realization, what was the first step that you had to take?
Yeah. So when my dad said, don't miss Leo's games, that hit me in a couple of ways. First, it was like this beautiful gift and closure to this open loop that my pain didn't go to waste as a kid. So that was kind of cool. Didn't know where to park it, but I was like, thank you for that. And then the other side was, oh my goodness, I'm my dad all over again. I'm doing the nice homes, cars, and trips to Europe thing, just like he showed me. And when he made that statement, that was the first time it was like lovingly instilled inside of me that I can't keep doing this because I remember being the kid that had the dad that wouldn't go to games and that kind of didn't feel good at all. And I'm already blowing it for my son. He's 10 months old at this time, but he was one of these kind of learn to walk earlier in life and starting to communicate and a lot of those firsts that I'm missing out on. I'm depending on my wife to send me these pictures and videos of him doing this stuff because I'm not there present. And so I was like, okay, this needs to change. I'm on board now. I believe it. And I'm like, okay, I'm working 16-hour days, so I'm going to start tomorrow. And my dad already passed away, and so the next day comes, okay, I'll start tomorrow, start tomorrow, start tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow's turned into 3 years, and
Mm,
we're talking 2018 now, so 3 years from my dad's passing. My
mm.
business scales to $20 million in revenue. I have this money printer, and it's like you press a button and it spits out money, more money than I can ever spend. So like I should be feeling happy and accomplished, but for some reason I don't. Like I have more money than I can ever spend. As long as I'm not buying a helicopter every day, I should be okay. And so didn't buy any helicopters. And so, but I was hating life. And I don't say hate common. I'm like, it's not a common phrase for me. Like if I say, or word, if I say it, I mean it. It's like a visceral feeling of disgust. And I remember I have, well, he's a dear friend now, but at the time he was my coach and my mentor. And he was in Europe for the week. And this was in August of 2018. And I remember him messaging me saying, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week with the family. Need anything, just send me an email and we'll connect when I'm back in the States.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, cool. And then, so that week he was gone was the same week that or the same day, one day in that week, I'd reached like the pinnacle of my burnout. I'm like, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want any more of it.
Mhm.
And I remember writing him an email because I couldn't call him. And I'm like, hey, when you get back, we need to talk because, I hate this business. I'm trapped. I feel like a prisoner. I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing. I want to just close it down, burn it down, walk away, sell it. I just want out. And hit me when you get back next week. And then I was like, vented. And I'm like, all right,
And
feel a little better.
but you know
Yeah.
what, George? One of the things you say in your book, he asked you a question. And what was that
Mhm.
question he asked you?
Well, if it's the question that I think, because I know we had a good conversation, but it's like something along the lines of you quit doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you're good at. And so I believe it had something to do with, well, what are you doing
But
that's,
he
yeah.
also said, do you want, and I'm gonna find it because I thought it was really beautiful. He said, do you want to live your business or do you want your business to live for you? I think is what he kind of grasped. And that was, I think that was your turning point, the way you wrote it in the book, is that when he asked you that question, because you had never really thought about it that way,
Yeah,
you were
yeah,
like, wow,
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
really living for my business and my business is not living for me.
Yeah, that's really where everything started. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I was thinking more practical steps, but yeah, high level. That's essentially what it was that he asked me, and it kind of reframed my thinking on it. And it's like instead of now wanting to burn the whole thing down, that sort of just said, all right, how do we make this work? And it was just a mindset shift. And it was a 2 hour phone conversation, but to boil it
Mm.
down in a sentence or two, it's like stop doing what you don't like doing, keep doing what you like doing, which is what you're good at. And I'm good with sales, copy, marketing, revenue generating activities, not, admin stuff, merchant accounts, customer support, invoicing, banking, vendor,
all,
thing.
all the mission support stuff that nobody ever wants to talk about. I get that.
Exactly.
So this process begins your journey into buy back your time formula. And for all of you guys, his book is Buy Back Time Formula. And so
That's
you
it.
can get this on, where can you get this book?
Yep, just like the name, buybacktimeformula.com. There's a link to buy the book, and really like it's free, just pay shipping kind of thing. As you're holding it, it's not a light book, it's not a flimsy book. It's 128 pages and
Yes.
it's kind of workbook style, and it's a durable book you could put by your computer, tear it up, highlight it. It'll take the beating.
Right. So you began this journey. So I want you to talk about is because it goes against everything you were taught about that was success, right?
Hmm.
So what was something that you developed while transforming your life? So you said you went from 2015 to 2018, you still were doing the status quo, but then you started this journey and buyback. And
Yeah.
so what did that actually mean to you? And how did that equate to you putting this into a formula?
Yeah, so the basis of that conversation was the foundation of the buyback time formula. It didn't have the name back then, and I had to like apply that for myself first, and then I had to prove the transformation real for me, and then years later said, "Oh, I've got something here I can share with the world," and that's really exciting. But yeah, so to kind of share a little bit of the transformation. So 2018, $20 million in revenue, sometimes working as much as 90 hours, 80 or 90 hours a week.
Mm.
It's like insane when I think about it now. Fast forward 2.5 to 3 years, we're at nearly $50 million, so it more than doubles, but I'm living a semi-retired lifestyle, never working more than 30 hours a week, sometimes off the grid for multiple weeks. Doesn't mean that fires don't happen, that issues don't pop up, but somebody else handles them. And it's not by magic or wishful thinking, it's by frameworks. And I put in all the frameworks that I know into that book so that other people could use them too. And really, like, I know that I talk a lot about these, 20 million, 50 million and all that. But really, I wish I would have read this book at day one when I didn't have any business. Or at any point along my journey, it could have been very useful because at the beginning, it's like, okay, you're going to have to kind of like grind a little bit. That's the truth. If you've got, limited funds and it's just you but you have time, you're going to have to like put in some of that time. But once you start generating a little bit of revenue, you're going to want to have kind of like a roadmap or a blueprint of where do I go as this thing grows so that I'm not scaling chaos. Cause that's what I did.
Mhm.
I was treating my $20 million business like it was a $3 million business. At 3 million, yeah, my systems could have worked, still probably a lot of room for improvement, but there was no major breakage there. It's when it hit that higher volume, the threat levels and the breakage escalates at that higher level. I was scaling chaos. Had I had these frameworks in place from day one or anywhere in the early part of the journey, it just boggles my mind to think how much more efficient and less bumpy that road would have been. But I also know we go through that for a purpose and all that. So I'm thankful for the experience and now I'm able to share it with other people.
But one of the things you mentioned in your book, George, which was very pivotal to me, was that as you do delegate and allow others to have ownership of tasks, it's the questions, it's the way you phrase the questions. It's not, I want you today to make sure that you respond to customer service issues in 20 seconds, or I'm just throwing that out there. 20 seconds is not realistic, so I don't want anybody to say, is she crazy? 20 seconds, but you rephrase it to say, today I want you to look at customer responses to make it 98%. So you gave them a number to shoot for. And so tell me about how you learned how it's the questions that you've asked in terms of how you delegate to help people to have ownership of that task.
Yeah, basically like the old way, or at least the old way I did it, I would task it out. I might explain what I want done, but it almost like leaves it up to their imagination, which also potentially leaves a lot of room for error if you sort of like leave it to where it's not fully explained. But the new way, the new me, and how I alluded to in the book, you're transferring ownership and you're showing them what the outcome looks like. Like, here's what finished looks like. Here's an example of completion. And so, yeah, that could be, we need our response time to be at a certain number versus, like trying to shoot for like, make sure you hit 1,000 responses and you can take as long as you want, for example. It's just show them what the outcome looks like, and then so long that they're a good hire. And that's also discussed in the book. Not really it's a lot to go into that right now in this conversation, but assuming that you have a good hire, you give them the liberty to seek an even more efficient solution to reach that outcome. And so you're not limiting them, you're not stifling them to your potentially, I don't want to say broken process, but flawed process. And I was the king of the flawed process. I thought I was really good at it. So I'm just like, here's what I do. And then once I like gave it up, but I show them what the outcome looks like, the smart people, the smart, capable people I had would refine it and make it even better. And I'm like, oh, wow. So it's more efficient. It's better. It's more solid. Good. Way better than what I could have done it. I don't know why I kept holding on to that so long, thinking I'm the best in the world, but I'm glad that was released.
And something else that you said earlier as we were talking is that you were working 90 hours a week. And so I want to ask you this because you came up with the buyback time formula. What does buying back time actually mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously it can mean anything to anybody. And so I'm a family first, father first kind of person. So to me, it means giving that time that I buy back to my family so that I can be present for them. Because like I said, my dad lost his family, like he lost us. He couldn't sustain that lifestyle and maintain a family at the same time. The average time that a woman thinks about leaving their husband before they actually do is 2 years. And so I know that a lot of the, like, say, me 10 years ago, and I call my avatar cash rich, time poor. Again, anybody can use it, but just speaking about my situation specifically, I was giving all my time went to my business. And, at home, it's like they get the burned out, the stressed out version of me, the frustrated, the upset, the thinking about work all the time, the phone in my face while family's trying to talk to me. And, I'm trying to like pretend like I'm listening, but it's like, it's hard to juggle that.
That didn't work out well. You was acting like you was, okay.
Yeah.
I know the wife was like,
oh my gosh, she sees through all that nonsense. Yeah. And so I admit, like, sometimes it can creep up today. So I'm like, if she's talking, I just got to be like, all right, phone, like, I got to keep you at arm's distance because otherwise, yeah, you kind of seep back into that.
So let's start back. Let's go back to that buyback formula. What was the hardest part of that formula for you to implement? And I know it's so many steps in here, we can't go through it all in our segment right today, because I think the best thing, like you said before, is to get the book, because I don't have nearly the amount of sales that you have, but I truly could relate to what you were saying, especially into doing that time audit. And it's really serious. If you were to look at your time for a whole week and no bones about it, because when people say to me all the time, I don't have time for this, I really cringe because I want to say you really do if you were to really audit your time, because it can be painful for you to see just how much time you might be spending on social media, or even allowing the noise in your head to eat up an hour. Like somebody told you something bad and you sat there for a whole hour replaying those words when you could have been doing something else. So that's why you really need to do this audit, which you mentioned in the book, and we won't
Mhm.
go through that. But what was the hardest part for you to implement in your buyback time formula?
Yeah, specifically as far as the task to let go was probably the paying the bills or paying vendors, especially certain vendors, because when your business is at that level, and this can apply to any level really, but for me specifically, an invoicing mistake could be a six-figure mistake that you cannot reverse. I'd been through a couple of experiences where I had an accounting person send a payment to the wrong person, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like this is not a good thing. Especially like when we're paying like people that send us sales, which is like send us traffic. At the volume we're doing, some of these invoices are six-figure weekly payments, and so like some of these names are similar, two different companies start with an M and they kind of look the same. And, sometimes, I don't know, was that person not wearing their glasses, didn't see it correctly and select the wrong one. And so like that kind of mistake for me haunted me for a few years, and it had me sort of like hang on to that more than I had to. But at some point you sort of just have to like take that leap of faith and just be like, we've got systems, we've got frameworks.
Mm.
So for a while I implemented a kind of like any invoice over $50,000, just set it up before you hit the button. Just like, shoot me a little message to like for approval for that. And after a while, it's like, okay, I think we're good. We've got a good system down, and I was able to trust. And so that was the one that it took me a while. I would have reached transformation less than a year had I sort of like given up. But of course, stubborn entrepreneur that's addicted to feeling important, feeling the hero, feeling the grind. And if I'm not grinding, I'm not being productive and I'm a loser. There's a lot of like mindset shifts that need to happen and to
Mm.
really experience pure freedom from the founder prison that we build ourselves.
And we use the word believe so much because it really plays a big part in your actions, your words, and what you actually create. So I want to go forward a little bit. Now you've implementing this formula and you have your time back. So I want to ask you this: what old belief about work and worth did you shatter by reducing your schedule?
Yeah, I'd say like finding self-worth in the grind, finding self-worth in like the amount of money coming in. It's like, my old me was like, business is doing great that day, I'm on top of the world. If it's like not doing great, I feel like an idiot, a loser, and I'm worthless.
Mhm.
And so disconnecting my value from the performance of my business, because otherwise I feel like I should be in an insane institution with my emotions going like this. Just like sometimes it'd be an hourly thing. Oh my gosh, we had a great spike of sales. Oh my gosh, sales have been down for the last 30 minutes. And I'm just like, I had to break myself from checking my CRM on a like almost many times an hour basis. It's like that was kind of insane. So I went to checking it once daily to now I don't even check it at all. I have my accounting team essentially produces like a daily P&L. And I
Mm.
just sort of just wait for that to come out. And I'm just like, okay, good day, bad day, whatever. But I detached my value to what that number says. And that was a huge mind shift for me. And that allows me to remain present with my family, to not be grumpy, and essentially to just release that stress and not carry that burden. I don't think we were designed to carry a lot of these burdens and stresses on our own. So it was just something I just had to let go. And some of that's outside of the book, essentially, kind of just getting rid of some of that self pressure that we put on ourselves. I touch upon some of that, but obviously that's a deep topic in and of itself, is sort of that identity shift and knowing who you really are, as opposed to the labels that you put yourself on or that you think others have of you that you need to like maintain.
And I want to expand upon that just a little bit because you speak about that a little bit about identity in your book, and it's really more identity about the different hats that we wear. But I want to talk about this because this is something pivot, and I keep using that word pivotal, but it's monumental because we get so stuck into who the world says we are to be versus who we have to turn around and define ourselves to say who we are to be. And that takes getting connected with you and uncovering that versus getting that noise out the way on what the world says, right?
That's it. Yeah. And that's a tough process, and also like once you realize like, okay, maybe some people think this way of me, but why do I care so much why they think of me? Because the second that they think of something else, they forget all about me anyway. It's not like they're thinking about me 24/7 and I have to maintain this. So it's almost just like these self-inflicted wounds. And I don't know. I think we needlessly carry a lot of that identity, thinking that that we need to maintain that when in reality, honestly, I think most people could care less. Like, oh, you're having a bad day. Oh, I feel sorry for you. It's like if I think that, okay, maybe people will sympathize with me that I'm not feeling so great right now, maybe I'll release that pressure.
See, and
Yeah.
that's what has to happen. You said the word, we have to release.
Yeah.
We have to release what we want others, what we feel is the priority. The priority is not what others think. The priority is about what you feel and what your connection with your source.
Yeah.
So I use the word source because we're all on different levels in terms of our spiritual faith, and no, and everybody has their own. But my point is that you had to realize you had to release that and instead focus on what were really the truths that you wanted to live your life by, right?
That's it. Yeah, I had to release it. And yes, speaking of spiritual, I released it to God. I'm like, God, I know you didn't design us to like carry this on and you want us to depend on you and seek you for strength. Take it. I gladly give it to you. And it says in the Bible, cast your cares upon him. And cast isn't just like, here, take my cares. Cast, if you see it, it's like chunk it, like, you're casting a reel, like fishing. It's like throw it as if you're trying to throw a rock into the ocean or something. So sometimes I visualize myself picking up whatever I'm stressing on, just throwing it in God's direction, and then God just like catching it, like I got you, and I'm okay, cool. I'm not gonna stress about it anymore. Sometimes I got to do that often. It's not just one and done. It's a process.
So let me ask you this. So the transformation, because transformation is a process.
Hmm.
And you already alluded to the fact it took you from when your father told you in 2015 to really start enacting that transformation in 2018. So how long, and I think you kind of talk about it in your book, how long did it take for that transformation truly to occur where you now are down to the 20 to 30 hours a week?
Yeah, and I probably alluded earlier, like 2.5 years, and it took probably a year-ish longer than it should have because I was hanging on to certain things. But once I really started to feel the benefits of it, and I think speaking in general, like once people start to feel the benefits of buying back time, you sort of get addicted to it. Oh my gosh, what else can I do? What else can I unload? Of course, there's certain things you want to keep doing because you sincerely enjoy it. That's what you're good at, and that's what you should be doing. But when I did my own time audit, I discovered that out of the sometimes 60, sometimes 90, but at least a 40-hour block of that insane work I was doing was $50 an hour or less tasks. And
Mhm.
so I'm not a mathematician, but 40 hours times $50 an hour is $2,000. So of course I got my little money printer here. That was an easy investment to buy back, more than half of my work days. But I wasn't aware of that at the time, or I wasn't ready to receive it or something. I don't know the excuse, but I guess I just wasn't prepared to do that until my friend, lovingly smacked me over the head and gave me the wisdom that you reminded me earlier of about the lifestyle or about the business and life connection.
Well, and the thing about it is that transformation is not easy. And you've pointed that out because you struggle with giving up something that you felt that you just had to keep your hands around. And so that speaks to when we talk about transformation, people think, wow, okay, here I got the formula. In 30 days, I'm gonna be a whole different person. But we need to understand that it's a journey and we
Yep.
have to be willing. Because I know there were times that you were discouraged.
Oh yeah.
Can you speak to that? The times where you were discouraged, where you just see the transformation just wasn't going as you wanted it to be. How did you keep going? Because we have those times in our life where it's hard and it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah. So there'll always be setbacks along any journey, and you can either kind of like look at that and pout at it and sort of just like let that get you stuck. I look at it. Of course, I pout for a second, and then I'm like, all right, we're done. Let's go. I got it out. I know some people like try to avoid that emotion. Sometimes I'll just welcome it, but it's like a controlled fire. It's like, all right, we're gonna kick and pout for 1 minute. When that clock is up, we're done, and we're gonna find a solution. So sometimes I leave room for my little pouts. But yeah, like certain tasks fall through the cracks. You have to you turn over people. Sometimes they're not the right person for the role, and you invest into them, and you feel like, okay, I finally got it, and then you're off doing something, and you're pulled back in because there's an issue there with somebody who was supposed to be doing the task for you. Yeah, those could be potential setbacks. But the goal is, as you're creating the process for them to learn from, that you're only having to do that once, and then it's easy, or not easy, but like not impossible to like replace that person with somebody else capable. And then you have the framework in place that maybe somebody else on the team could like absorb for a little bit. So that was a challenge sometimes when some of the team members got overworked because somebody else was dropping the ball. So that can always create a little friction that kind of comes back up to you. But yeah, generally speaking, it was definitely a journey worth going down. And yeah, that's it. But that's the best way to put it. It's a journey, and sometimes there's little bumps. You just gotta adapt and adjust and keep going.
But you said it right, is that you have to keep your eye on finally what it is you're seeking to achieve. Because we're taught that we only can believe in what we think and feel and taste right now. But you kept your vision on what could actually become a reality. And that's what we have to learn how to do, is see beyond the natural, to
Yeah.
see what you see as your final outcome. And that's how you were able to make your final transformation, and you were able to create this book. So let's now move forward.
Mhm.
You are now showing up for your business differently than what you were before. And you kind of alluded to it, where you're no longer looking at your CRMs every hour, and you're really spending more time with your family. So what that equates to is now Leo, your son, and your wife is seeing a difference. And how are they experiencing it now? I mean, what was the change from when you were in that 90 to 80 hour week to now where you're only in that 20 to 30 hour week for your in your lifestyle?
Yeah, it's interesting because at first, as you're kind of getting into it, you almost have to like rebuild the trust at home because part of the things that I do also in my coaching of this for people that need more help than what the book offers, and the book has everything, but some people are like, I'm so busy, I just need you to walk me through it, and so I'm there for them. And on the personal side, because we do all the business stuff too, but I also help on the personal side because I'm like, if you're coming to me for help, we're going to help you on the personal side because that's like where my passion is, and I'm assuming that's why they're talking to me. And so like when we schedule something in from the business side, like a Zoom meeting for something, I mean, unless we get hit by a bus, we're like making that meeting because we're like committed, business people, like this is what we do, so we're not going to miss it. But speaking for myself, in the old days, if I'd planned something on the calendar for family stuff, say like a game or an event important for the family, I'd put it in my calendar, but it was almost like tentative. It's like if there's an emergency or some like a business emergency or a call that pops up, that the first thing that goes out, like nothing. And so right now, my own personal mindset plus my clients that I work with, I'm like, and it's a mindset shift because you could easily keep blowing it off like that. But it's like, no, when I put that in the calendar, it's set in stone, and anything that comes up has to move around it. And if there's an emergency, I mean, unless it's life threatening, but like business emergency, like that's happening, and we need to find an alternative solution that's not going to prevent me from attending this. And that's how you regain your family's trust, because the old me was like, breaking it all the time. And so like once I'm ready to come around and really commit to this, we'll see. There wasn't like this excitement of, oh my gosh, he's gonna come back. It's almost like, yeah, we've heard some of that before. So it is an element of rebuilding trust at home. And so, yeah, that I would say is something to be mindful of as you are on your journey. Mhm.
I love that. I love that, where you you speak to the fact that you had to rebuild your trust with your family, and they had to know that when you that your word now became your bond, because in the past it wasn't, because you were so quick, like you said, to throw those things off your calendar. Oh, they can wait, and you had to now do it. You had a total mind shift. So let's now move to the end of this journey. And it's not really an end. It's just, and I don't want to say the end of the journey because that's really not the right word. That's the chapter now that's been closed and you're on a new
Yeah,
chapter.
that's it.
So I want to ask you, let's redefine now, because you redefine what success means to you. So what has surprised you the most in your new definition?
Yeah, I just say, and I think a lot of founders will encounter this as they're going through their own transformation, is that they don't realize how vital their presence is to their family. It's like, like my previous career, because like I feel like I've had this hard career change, even though I still own a portion of my company, still a little bit, but I'm now extremely like passive to that. But the majority of my career has been selling supplements online, like, like vitamins and things like that, at a mass scale. And they were good products, but I never had anybody telling me, oh my gosh, this bottle of pills changed my life. I mean, maybe it gave them less joint pain, mental clarity, and that's fine. That's what it's supposed to do. But it wasn't like transformational. And now I'm getting text messages and calls from men who are like, oh my goodness, my kids light up like a Christmas tree when I'm around. I didn't know how important it was. And that just speaks to the fact that we sort of just run life on autopilot. And it's like, we're building this business for the family. We're trying to provide them a great lifestyle. And we build ourselves into this founder prison. And then we lie to ourselves thinking, I'm the only one that can do this. And so like we stay trapped while we neglect the family that we're supposedly doing it for. And so my hope is that this can help at the end of the day save families. Like mine was, kind of in jeopardy. My family wasn't like standing at the door about to leave, but I've seen where that movie ends personally with my dad. And I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. It stops here. And so my goal, not only is it to like keep families together, bring dad back home. Again, this works for women too. I just think my story resonates with the dad of the me of 10 years ago, being stuck in that position. And then bringing the little boy or little girl, bringing dad back into the picture so that they're, instead of being raised by iPads and iPhones, they get their awesome dad who was put on this earth to lead the family, and they're just now picking up the mantle. And so my hope and my dream and my vision is that they see that as a challenge and take it, and I'm here to help them if they got any questions.
A couple of things that you said that really resonated with me is that one, you emulated your father, but then you had a wake up call with that last conversation that you had from him. So that speaks to a lot of times our environment is a big influencer into the person that we become. But then it takes something to shake us up out of that mindset that we had solidified in us to help us know that, wait a minute, you're not going the right way. And it's not to say, like you said before, your dad was not a bad dad because he was a provider. It's just the fact that's what you saw. So we emulate what we see. But you had to get the understanding, and you were very hurt by the fact that he missed your games and things. But then you found that it hurt him as well. And that helped you heal from that pain that you had deep within yourself all those years.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that you were able to lay that to rest, because then you would be carrying that around still today. So I love what you said is that you don't have to stay where you began. That's what, in essence, what you have showed us today is that your perspective, yes, you had a good life and your father was great, but however, you could be better.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference between your best and your better, is that you saw that you could be better. And so what I want to ask you now is that someone who's listening here today and they'll say, yeah, this is real good. You were able to do all those changes because you had all that money. But I don't have that money. So what can I do?
Yeah, and everybody's going to be kind of at a different level of what their resources and finances might be. I hinted earlier to it, but like back when I started to first seek other help, I was still, yeah, I say still, like I wasn't very cash flush, I should say, and so I had to sort of it was kind of tight because it was American help and they wanted full time. So, and they were local. So like when you can choose all over the country or all over the world, you can sort of find people who are willing to kind of compete for their pricing and really like, bring their best. But, and that day, like this was like maybe '06-ish area time frame. It was very slim pickings out there, and you're sort of stuck with whoever you get. But like today's very different. So even if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, I have very limited resources. Obviously, it costs something to do this, but you literally for like $100 a week, you could have some good help from say like the Philippines or Pakistan. Platforms like Upwork really validate these people. So you're not just hiring somebody like hoping that they work out. There's a feedback system, so you can go in there and see if they've been hired by other people. And I highly recommend it. If you've never been on Upwork, definitely scrutinize their feedback and find somebody who has really good feedback. There's plenty of people, and some of these countries that we don't think about very often, and these low hourly rates of even Pakistan's. I've seen $2 or $3 for quality work. We might think, oh my gosh, how would anybody work for so little? But in those countries, that's an acceptable wage. We just have it really good in this country in terms of our expectations. But yeah, overseas, there's a lot of good talent, and they're very well trained. They've had other clients that they've worked for that have actually put in a lot of the training to get them up to speed to where they could service you with little training. They need to learn how you operate, but the fundamental skills are there. And so, yeah, I have all my frameworks in the book. And so if you're just starting out with limited resources, and hey, if you're listening and I can't even spend $100 a week, like you're in that position, I'd still encourage you to read the book because anybody who's going to go in a business, obviously, I say obviously, maybe obvious in my head, but that our expectation is that it's going to be fruitful. You need people eventually. We're going to provide a service, and every business owner is going to become humbled eventually with that they can't do it all. Don't ask me how I know, but and going to need help in higher resources. So I think it'd just be a good book to have in your library for that when that opportunity comes up. And even before, I would just get used to the concepts. And there's certain things like I would still do the time audit, even if I'm just like a one-person show with limited resources, because as you get going and as you start generating revenue, you'll be able to quickly know, okay, once some cash flow comes in, these are the first things I'm getting off my plate, because doing that will allow me to accelerate the revenue by doing these other things that I should be doing. So yeah, that would be my best advice for that.
But one of the other things that you mentioned, which I think is key too, is that doing the audit will also help you see tasks that you can eliminate.
Yeah,
Sometimes
absolutely.
we take on things that we don't really need to be doing. And I'm one of those people, I'm quick to know when to say no.
Hmm.
I'm going to be honest. When somebody says, well, I say no,
Yeah.
and if they try to put something on my plate that I know that I'm not able to put on my plate now, and I know they probably mean it in all wellness for me, maybe in the future, but right now I'm going to stick to, I've already developed my 2026 plan, and that's not part of my plan right now.
That's it. That's how you accomplish your goals, is by
You
sticking
know,
to it.
you
Yep.
know, I mean, there could be some flexibility in there, but no, I'm not taking that on. Okay.
Yeah, I love that. That's a gift. I wish I would have adopted that a lot sooner in life.
But no. So George, I've enjoyed our conversation today, and this has been very enlightening for me. I mean, and I have used Upwork before. I will say I've used it for my non-for-profit when I had to create my, I don't know why I'm having a brain freeze, but my proposal, my sponsorship
Yeah,
booklet. And
yeah,
it was very, very professionally done. And I would always say Upwork is a good place to go if you just need to get a task done, because why would I waste 80 hours of my time with someone who could do it in 20 hours or less, because that's their ballywag. So
that's
it
it.
goes back to how much is your time worth to you. So
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that whatever you can farm out in terms of, some consulting work or someone part-time, do it, because it will free you up immensely to focus on being the architect, which is what you say in your book. You do need to be the architect of your business. If you're working in the business, you cannot be working on your business. And that's what the architect is responsible for.
Exactly.
So, is there any final thoughts you want to leave to any listener today?
Yeah, no, this has been amazing. Thank you, Hasina, for having me on. And yeah, I mean, the final kind of parting thought is usually like, because I've been there kind of towards the end of one's life, and like I'll say like nobody's ever said, "I'm so glad that I blew your game off for that client meeting," or insert business excuse. Nobody's ever said that. At that point, you wouldn't even remember the name of that client that was so important that you had to blow that family thing for. And so I know at the end of all of our days, we'll probably have moments that we regret, we could have done this better, could have done that better. We're human. And I think, that's just part of life. But I think the goal is to minimize those regrets and to be like, hey, yeah, there's things I wish I could change. But you know what? When I became aware that there was another solution, I gave it my all. And I can hang my hat up on that. And we're good.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today, George. And I cannot wait to see what happens in the next phase and chapter of your life because I know it's going to be amazing. You already have, what did I say? Chased this one rabbit and caught it. Now you're chasing your next rabbit. And I know that it's going to be very rewarding for you.
Oh, thank you. Means a lot. And yeah, I look forward to keeping in touch and yeah, seeing where everything goes.
Thank you. That's it for now. We'll see you next
Awesome.
time on the next episode of Change Your View.
That's all for this episode of Change Your View. May this conversation help you weather life's storms and break free from the pause holding you back. Reclaim your path and refuse to be sidelined by anyone. For more inspiring and eye-opening discussions, visit hsjackson.com. Stop living in others' shadows or letting outside voices dictate your path. Think for yourself. Your perspective matters. Embrace a better mindset and unleash your full potential. Thank you for listening. Until next time.